right, guys. So again, I'm going to be doing a deep background story on Brazil because I think that this story that Jack talked about at the beginning is probably, as everything, is nuanced, and there is a lot going on. And you may have heard over your life about the great game, and that is the game over natural resources. And something I used to study was the IMF, its loans, the way it would really take these countries that were rich in natural resources and make them debt slaves and come in and do all kinds of horrible things. So it's very important to actually understand the way that the big game works and that little club that none of us are a part of, and that has to do a lot with natural resources. So what I want to do firstly is just a little wiki history of Brazil and talk about its exports, talk about its global importance, because I totally believe we're globally synchronized. That's a term that I learned on Eurodollar University. And that, in essence, all of what's happening in all of these countries is so important to what's happening here in the US and what's impacting the housing market, believe it or not. And that's, what we're trying to kind of show you is all of these different relationships. So very quickly, Brazil is very important globally. Largest country could be a company in South America and Latin America, fifth largest country by area, and seventh most populous. Essentially, the biggest thing that I want everyone, it's very diverse, kind of biodiverse, and it's very resource rich. And so this is from Wikipedia. I bolded it for emphasis. But the country's natural richness is also the subject of significant global interest, as environmental degradation through processes such as deforestation has direct impacts on global issues such as climate change and biodiversity loss. Guys, and just FYI, the last time we talked about that CC phrase, we got a note on our channel, even though we said we weren't going to talk about the CC. So hopefully everybody knows what I'm referring to. But you can see here very political motivations. It's not, and I can guarantee you, as we talk a little bit more about Brazil, you'll see what resources they have. And you'll see that likely that deforestation thing is just a cover. And I can't remember. Oh my gosh, Jack, do you remember who the guy was who read the riot act to the reporter in Britain over their carbon emissions? Maybe one of the two of you could actually look that up. So basically, it was some person. Actually, it was in Africa. He was in Africa. I can't remember which African, but he kind of took to task the British media talking about their big crimes, environmental crimes. And it was very, very interesting. But so these guys, Brazil is interesting. When I looked on the IMF website, I could see their last loan to Brazil was in 2007. That's kind of interesting. If anybody has more data on them, please post some comments, things like that, because I think I'm just getting into this story. But they are an area of great concern in the great game, and we'll find out here why. One of the things is it's one of the largest producers of various agricultural commodities. It provides 50% of the food in the country. They're doing much better in terms of some countries who can't grow any of their food, for instance. But it's the largest producer of sugarcane, soy, coffee, and orange. Okay, so something else I studied when I was studying the IMF, I was studying post-colonial nations because they're very much hand in hand with the IMF. And post-colonial nation is a nation that was once colonized by someone like Spain, Britain, etc. And I had a professor once that said, if it wasn't for discovering sugar, the British would never have been able to colonize most of the world. It gave them the energy, like those energy drinks that Travis actually drinks. So, so these resources are very important, and they're the top producer of coffee. Anybody know what's going on with coffee prices right now?
Yeah, you can. Dry weather in key parts of the world. And man, they've just gone vertical, the price of
Yes.
coffee. And I saw somebody in the Macro Edge group said the other day that someone posted a chart of the coffee prices, and the first comment was "Civil War imminent." Like, if you mess with the
Right?
coffee supply, people are going to start killing each other.
So what my professor said about the sugar was about also the coffee and the tea. And we are a coffee consumption country. I mean, we consume a ton of coffee. And look here, I've posted a chart here of coffee prices. They've gone up. So when something like this happens, it becomes political as well. And so there's a lot going on. And so they have a lot of they produce a lot of corn, cotton, lemon, tobacco, all kinds of things. Very, very resource rich. Okay. Livestock, they do a lot of production of meat, beef, pork, chicken, etc. But here's where things start to get interesting, right? So Brazil is the world's 24th largest exporter and 26th largest importer as of 2021. China is its largest trading partner, accounting for 32% of the total trade. Okay, so their alliance from a trade perspective rests with China, right? So just important. I'm not weaving a huge conspiracy theory today, but what I'm trying to show you is just the importance of Brazil. So let's get to the story. Musk's ex suspended in Brazil after disinformation row. This is from BBC.com. And honestly, all of the what I would say left-wing media has the same talking points around this story. And what's interesting is I'm not finding as much in the right-wing media about it, but we'll just talk about what we know. I think we'll be talking about this story more in the future. But just as Jack said, basically X has been banned in Brazil after failing to meet a deadline set by the Supreme Court judge to name a new legal representative in the country. And so this judge has really, someone in the comments talked about that he has a history of making these really crazy decisions, but he's going after it, no doubt. But I also want to keep in mind too, and even putting aside your politics, that a lot of these resource-rich countries feel very taken advantage by the global West. And remember, I can remember so clearly back during our election when all of the social media platforms kind of shut down, January 6th, things like that were shutting down Trump on social media, and I took I said to myself, like, I won't, I'm very apolitical, I lean libertarian like Jack. But I said to myself, like, that scares the heck out of me. And I mean, I didn't want to listen to the man anymore. But when you do so, and it was so interesting to me when I talked to millennials and Gen Zers about it and their difference in opinion. And I was just like, you don't want anyone coming and doing that. I mean, free speech is, in my opinion, the bedrock, sort of the key tenet of this country. And we have to respect it.
And it's the bad stuff, Melody. It's like the bad stuff. Someone made this comment. It's like, we don't need the free speech for the things that people agree with us on. The free speech is for all of the bad stuff or the disagreements and the stuff that keeps us sharp. We don't want the racism and any of that type of crazy stuff. But I mean, it's the bad stuff that needs to be protected. The disagreements is what needs to be protected.
Amen, agree? Travis. Amen. Right.
Yeah. And I think too, so what's interesting, we often have these loomies, as I call them, performing certain things out there. Right now, I'm actually reading a very interesting book about kind of the evolution of free speech and how it got into the Constitution, different things like that. And it's very interesting history. Not everybody was on board back then, guys. Hardly anyone was on board when they wrote the Constitution. So, but you can see here what Musk said, and we'll talk about this. Free speech is the bedrock, just like I said, of democracy, and an unelected pseudo judge in Brazil is destroying it for political purposes. Well, the judges, anyway, I'm not going to go down that. Okay, so basically what he's saying is that they asked X to shut down some of these right-wing accounts that they claimed were spouting disinformation. I don't have the facts. I have no idea how much, what is true, what isn't true. But essentially, they said as well, you have to have a representative in the country. As Jack said, the former representative quit and then was bullied, and it wasn't good stuff. But the judge said, you have to pay these fines, and they're going to start accruing. And they also froze the accounts of Starlink, saying, well, you didn't have enough in your X account, so we're gonna freeze your Starlink account as well. And obviously that's no good. It was no good when we decided to freeze all those Russian assets either. And so this is the other side of that coin. And this isn't the first time Musk has gotten into a similar war. He was also fighting with the UK Prime Minister. And so essentially, though, he's not this judge, however crazy people may think he is, he's also focused on on other companies. This isn't where this is, but I'll scroll down here. He's also, I'll try and find it. Oh yeah, here it is. He basically, Telegram was temporarily banned over its failure to cooperate with requests to block certain profiles. Meta's messaging service WhatsApp also faced temporary bans in 2015 and 2016 for refusing to comply with police requests for user data. So he's not just picking on X along. Okay, I think that the next interesting story comes from Time, and they say absolutely almost nothing new. But the title, I was so excited. I knew better because it was Time, but I was like, oh, what's the real reason Brazil is blocking Elon Musk's X Twitter? The story didn't give me any more new information, but kind of shows some of the other things you were talking about these fines, Jack, that are very burdensome for folks that don't make that kind of money. And so, this is going to be a very, people aren't going to want to mess around with this, but this story didn't tell me much more. And so pretty much what you're seeing out in the press right now, which is making me wonder what else is going on, are the same exact talking points across all of media outlets. And I think this is what's really, really actually funny. We'll talk about Musk in just a second, is essentially what did Musk do when the NPR did a story on Brazil and what this judge was doing? They flagged the article recently about Trump. I'm sorry, this was a story about Trump, not Brazil, but they flagged the article critical of Donald Trump, and it essentially broke the link to NPR. You couldn't get to the link. And so Trusk is a Trusk. Oh, that's a new one. We might need to use that one. Trusk. That's Musk and Trump. Trusk. Musk.
You're muted, Jack.
Oh.
Sorry, I was saying Mump and Trusk. Yes.
Right. So, essentially on the one hand, Musk is saying that free speech is the bedrock of our democracy. On the other hand, they are playing tricks by, breaking the link on this story, saying it's suspicious activity. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, I have been shadow banned on X Twitter several times. And people have told me they can't find me. And I'm talking about housing, guys. I'm not even talking about, I never get political on X Twitter. And so, and recently, I tweeted a story about Austin, and actually, I mean, it just got it. It was. I included a link, but even sometimes when I include a link, it actually did way better than the story. So there is definitely censorship. I remember one of my videos I did with Adam Taggart got labeled as I forget if it was suspicious or something, like a warning. Like, I can't remember what it was, but it was every housing bear got the same label, but it was like illicit. Oh, I remember it was illicit content. And we didn't curse. We didn't do anything like, and every housing bear was getting that same message. And so these things are happening. Whether Musk is out there saying that he's all for free speech, we know that his actions are quite different. And so, people, these folks, these loomies, they know how to use this language. And that's really what I want to kind of emphasize here, as well as I don't think we have the whole story yet. And I think that because you're seeing such a such the same talking points across the media outlets tells me I think that there's going to be something more here. But that's really it for my Brazil story. Anything? Questions, guys?
Thank you. Jack, you want to start?
I would chime in, and I would totally echo Melody's point about Elon not being an angel. Elon is out for Elon. I think it's very important to keep that in mind. He was the choir boy of the left when he was making electric vehicles and dealing in carbon credits and Solar City, right? And then he got into free speech, and now he is the choir boy of the right. He goes where the winds take him, whatever's in his best interests. And I would also point out that I have been on the receiving end of Mr. Musk's ire in the past, because Elon has a lot of investments in artificial intelligence. Tesla and X and Grok are buying all of these NVIDIA GPUs. And a lot of my videos about CoreWeave and about NVIDIA have been mysteriously unavailable. Those videos got several million views combined, and then all of a sudden one day on Twitter, they don't work. And as it happens, Elon has a lot of investments in artificial intelligence that may have been harmed by those videos if they were allowed to spread. So I've been on the receiving end of this. Censorship is the crutch of intellectual cowards. Good ideas don't need censorship to defend them. Bad ideas don't need to be censored. They censor themselves. So I am adamantly opposed to it. And especially when the government gets into it. All right. The case could be made. There's gray areas, right? If it's your channel, if it's your platform, you have a right to decide what's talked about on it. When the government tries to tell you what can and can't be discussed, that is a hard no from me. Absolutely.
And I didn't forget one of the most important things, the metals they have, and I wish, I know metal experts, and I know that there's a larger story here, but they have nickel, they have gold. And what do we need nickel for? We need nickel for EVs, guys. And so that, that's why they care about that deforestation, not because, they care about getting these resources to get in on the latest global grift. And this is what that is, these EVs that almost no one, hardly anyone now seems to want to buy. So you've seen these massive lots in Europe at these ports of just EVs for days everywhere, because there's such a glut of supply. But if we are going to meet those goals, we need these metals. And that really is the new great game is, getting these metals. It used to be oil. Now it's the metals. And Brazil plays a huge part in that as well.
I think that was good also, Melody. Like what you were saying hit me as well. I think we all need to think about this, that our content creators and influencers, right? It's when you think about what Musk is doing, being a freedom fighter for freedom of speech. If you're going to preach about how important freedom of speech is, then your actions have to match what you're preaching, or you're corrupt. So it's extremely disappointing to see that. I get it. And as content creators, we also have to be careful with that. When I first started doing content creation, there were times where I blocked a few people because I was like, this is my platform, and they're just, naysayers. And I'd wake up at like 4 a.m. I get a notification on my phone and it's someone calling me an evil person. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to deal with that. So I blocked them. But I stopped doing that once I really started understanding how bad censorship is. And now I look at like the comment section, especially on our videos, it's like, that's a user section, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like don't block. So I try not to even touch it. I don't want to block anything. But it took me a minute to understand what was actually going on. And actually we had to kind of evolve, I think, as content creators, because I didn't go to college for this, but
I've
You
never
gotta watch
blocked
both
anyone
sides.
on X. I've
You
never
blocked
blocked.
me.
No, I did not. I've never
where-
blocked a single person on X. Never.
I'm just kidding.
So
You didn't
that,
block
and
me.
that's on purpose. And you know, I choose when they're truly trolling, and you know it, and you've tried time and time again to engage. I might mute them, but I don't block. And often I'll go and look at the muted comments when it's not 4 a.m. in the morning, Travis. And when I can deal with that negativity coming my way, because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. I want alternative data. So I agree with you on that.